and click the button. Hello.
Hello, hey
Hello.
chat, what's up, guys?
Can you all hear
We are
us loud and
joined.
clear?
We are joined today. Me and Cora are joined by Mackenzie and Echo.
Hello.
Uh, they worked on Gentry Chow.
Hello.
Let me
Hell yeah.
We are joined.
mute the stream that I have playing in the background.
Me and Cora are joined by, Mackenzie and Echo.
There it is. Oh.
I've lost you.
Oh, there we go. Okay, my audio muted for a second there. Some classic Zoom troubles, as there are.
Do you feel like it's a day at work?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
clocking into the...
Yeah. Clocking in to watch some cartoons, dude. It's hard. It's a hard knock life out here.
It's hard.
Um,
Oh, it looks like I'm experiencing
working? Are we-
There's some delay right now. So I'm going to see if I can fix that real quickly by just disconnecting and reconnecting. Because
Okay.
there's like a 2-second delay between the video and audio.
with
Hello,
Echo
hello.
Wu. You know, me and Cora back, the creator of Gentry Chow, and Mackenzie Atwood, who also worked on the show. You worked as an editor, I believe?
Yeah, I did a
And
couple
voice
different.
actor?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Super cool.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, you guys probably saw our first Gentry video. We just recorded it offline the other day, and yeah, we're gonna be, I guess, discussing some spoiler stuff. So if you guys haven't seen the show yet, definitely go check it out on Netflix, man. I'm not gonna lie, I've been plugging this to everyone I know. Every Everyone I know, I'm like, any person, I'm like, okay, I gotta get you to watch this. And
I
yeah.
mean,
Felt.
I guess I'd say like for someone who's never seen or heard of the show, what's your just like quick pitch of like here's what our show is, here's why you should check it out.
I kind of want to hear Jack's pitch and how he's
What I'm just like, okay, so like I'm just like, it's like I'll tell you how I pitched it to my sister.
Mm,
I was like, because she loved like all these teen dramas, like when we were growing up. Like
hmm
she would force me to watch like Vampire Diaries and like Pretty Little Liars in my home. So I'm like, hey, what if they combine like the shows you watched with the shows I watched? And it's like, I don't know, I was basically pitching her on the melodrama of Gentry's relationships with Michael and Kit, and then I did get her to watch it. This woman does not, watch animation, but I did force her to watch it.
Nice.
Interesting. I don't really have a way to describe it because I usually just go, oh, I made a show, go watch it. And people will be like, oh, sweet, I'll go watch it. And then it's some people like the idea of going in blind to not know what the show is about. And I think like this show definitely benefits from it, from like going in blind, because I don't think people realize like once you're in, and it's kind of this like rabbit hole of a show that
Yeah.
it's so much more deeper. And I think every log line that like I have written or Netflix has written on behalf is so surface level. Like you can only really just be like, oh, it's about this Chinese American teen that has fire powers, and then mysteries unfold, and then you're just kind of like, okay, that sounds cool. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I really I guess I'd say it to me. I definitely felt like a I guess maybe like a little bit more mature of a take on a lot of the cartoons that I remember watching in like the mid late 2000s, early 2010s, because we were getting a lot more narrative cartoons, but it still felt like they were restricted pretty heavily by the audience and the demographics of TV. Whereas with this show, there's so many opportunities for surprises. Each episode, I think, really does a really good job of like unveiling something new or a new piece of information or
Hmm.
just something surprising, which is what I thought was super cool. Like there's a million moments in this that would have been like a season ender in a show I would have watched as a kid.
Yeah, I'm just like I'm thinking in terms of us, like what we do on this channel, we watch like a bunch of cartoons and just like comparing the events of like one episode of Gentry Chow to like entire series we have watched. It is like the plot beats, it's so like well paced and just so full of like interesting things happening in every episode. I was very impressed. So yeah, just you guys did a really great job.
thank you.
Um, yeah.
Hell
I
yeah.
yeah, no, I guess I wanted to. Oh my God. Sorry, I just wrote a chat. It said Jack is down bad for the granny. Oh my God. Um,
For
Gugu,
Goo Goo?
Gugu's the goat. We have to say she's a great character. I really liked her relationship with Gentry. I feel like it was a really interesting focal point for like familial dynamics. Was there like inspiration from like your own family, I guess, in terms of these sort of familial relationships?
I think there's no one that in my family I'd be like, yes, this was 100% the character that I based this person off of. But I think I had a general feeling that, you know, intergenerational trauma was a really big theme of the show. And I think it's portrayed a lot, especially when you have like Asian centric family in the series, that sometimes it can be extremely overboard. And so, or it's like really on the nose for a lot of people to watch. And so I think one of the interesting things about Gugu in particular is that she feels really reminiscent of what an Asian relative would be like being raised by a person who really they just want you to do your best and be like the best in their best interest, and that's kind of really prominent in like immigrant families and like people who like feel like they have really risked it all to come to this new uh new country and like kind of give the best to their family and their kids and like start over. And so I think
Hmm.
um there's the reciprocation of it is really interesting to me, like Gentry having to figure out that complicated relationship is really interesting to me because it's not like Gugu is 100% a villain, but in when we talked about Gugu a lot, especially with like her motives and what we want her to do, she really is like a villain. Like she really is kind of the true villain of the whole show, and it plays in like a really sweet spot of like even a villain is right sometimes. Like you're there's a gray area where like everyone. I heard once that like a good villain is someone who believes that they're right. Like they think that they're the good guy, and I think that's like 100% true for Gugu's
Hmm.
character. And I think it's like really reflective of like just kind of being having to live under this like big responsibility of being like the person that has to prove that they made the right choice, right? Like that your parents made the right choice to come to a different country and start over and do all this stuff. And so it kind of manifests in this form for Gentry and Gugu. And yeah, I loved it too. Like thanks for picking that up. I thought Gugu was like one of my favorite characters to write for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. She's yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
it's just like she's a lot of fun, beautiful woman, and
Beautiful, beautiful.
uh, she just brings like a lot of personality because she's she has her negative qualities, but still believes in what she's doing. That she's always doing the right thing, and is like an amiable, funny, fun person too. It's not like big, angry, stern all the time. She is very like openly loving,
Yeah,
um, which I like, and all the characters I think exemplify that behavior really well of having their problems and they mess up, and they're always trying to do what they think's the best thing to do. And when that comes to a head, you get all the juicy drama, which makes the show really fun to watch.
for sure.
Yeah. I just really like how familiar all the characters are, I guess, with each other. Like Gugu, like joking around with Gentry about all the fucking K-pop that she listens to, and like little details like that. I think really bring the familiar dynamics together. I thought really well, um, and yeah, uh, I thought that was really great.
For
Uh,
sure.
I'm curious. So I guess this is going a bit earlier, but I feel to me the show in itself is just really unique because it's like this combination of all these different elements. It's a little bit darker, but it's clearly still a show for like younger teens, which I think is a demographic that hasn't really been. There's not a lot of animation for them right now, which I think is unfortunate. So I was just curious about like the process of pitching the show. I know that Ali Wong was also like really heavily involved with the project, but like just getting this off of the ground, did you always have the vision of it being like more or less this kind of tone, or is that something that it more transformed into as you were discovering it?
Yeah.
I'm interested what that was like.
Yeah. So the pitching process, I think, um, in the very beginning, the show had an initial look that was done by the same character supervisor that's on the show now. And they had helped me put together this kind of a lookbook Bible kind of thing. And in that version, like Gentry and Gugu and Ed and everyone was like really different of an art style. It was closer to like maybe like a Gravity Falls or like an Amphibia. Like it was
Mm.
really geared towards kind of that Disney XD look. It had more simplified shapes and more graphic
Mm,
smaller proportions. Like everyone was like, shorter and more chibi. And I think in that version, um, I had initially wanted it to feel like, well, you talked about how it's like nostalgic and it reminds you of like late 90s, early 2000s animation. And that's like kind of intentional because I think we really missed the Courage the Cowardly Dog era where like cartoons were like very scary and genuinely like traumatic. So
We need to traumatize the children more.
we
It's
no,
do.
I,
important.
Somebody's got to do
I
it.
think it's important. I
Yeah.
really do because I think it like it is kind of a core memory for a lot of people to be scared and traumatized, and then they like really like being scared. And so we watched, like we watched things like Over the Garden Wall that had a little bit of horror in it also, and really liked that style. And so we tried to emulate that. And then it wasn't until we started pitching it around town. So the first initial wave of pitches was all done over Zoom. It was right when the pandemic shut down everything. Like we were maybe 3 months into the pandemic, I think. Like this was maybe
Oh, damn.
2020. Yeah. And my reps and I were like, well, shit, because we were going to spend the whole summer pitching this around town. What do we do? And I had to convert everything to like a virtual pitch because people were like, well, we're still taking pitches just over Zoom. So I remember being on the phone with Ali, and initially we were going to meet in person and be like, I was going to tell her about the show, and then none of that happened. And so we did it over the phone. And she was like, yeah, I love the project. And I told her a little bit about, what I saw and like kind of like the vision for it and just a general overview of the show. And she's like, I love the project. Let me join you pitching. And so it was me, Allie, and this other executive producer named Erin Colite, and the three of us were pitching it around town. And it's like so funny to see execs like watch Allie's window pop up and they're like, oh my god. There's like, it's like you're in the room with her, but then you're not, but you'll see suddenly like they totally shift behavior. And it's like kind of interesting to see that. And Allie is like so classically like her mute is not on or the camera's not on or
Oh shit.
the video call would go off and she's like, sorry, and it's really funny. But
it's Ali Wong, you know.
It's Ali Wong,
yeah.
and it kind of alleviates the pressure of being in this like really intense pitches, because people think pitches are this big like business meeting kind of a thing, and you have to like be super clean and pristine, and it kind of alleviated all of that and just felt like conversation, which I think really benefits for when you're pitching something like such a passion project like this. So we pitched it around town. We went to Netflix, HBO Max, Hulu, Disney Plus, and Apple. And every streaming network bought it. Like they wanted in on it.
Damn,
which is really great.
That's super cool.
It's like Shark Tank. You got all
It's like Shark Tank.
you got all the Mark Cubans on your ass. Damn.
It's like Shark Tank. And then like everyone gets to have a field day because it turns into what's called a bidding war, when you have like multiple streaming services wanting one project, and they just get to see like what benefits still get thrown in. And so finally we settled on Netflix. And then the development process was where I saw the most change in the artwork, because at that point they were hesitant about, like, you're right, it's this YA like cartoon, and no one really does YA cartoons. And so they were really hesitant about kind of making it this like Gravity Falls-esque looking show, but it's for like, it's got more adult themes and blah, blah, blah. And so we had kind of a development phase where we had to age the characters up, but more so make the style more sophisticated. So the style we see now and the screen, like on screen now, is that sophisticated version of the pitch Bible that we had originally taken out with. And it was really interesting because, you know, they were like, yeah, we just need you to make the show like more cinematic. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? Like, it means to make a style more cinematic. And Cal, the character supervisor, had then taken a pass where it was like very anime forward. It was like that kind of in the vein of like Castlevania, kind of like very adults, angular features on everyone, like very lanky limbs and stuff. And they're like, oh, we don't like that. Like, bring it back. Bring it back. And then it was like reducing. Can you reduce the features, like softer features by 20%, softer features by 30%? And then they like kind of met the sweet spots. And so I think the sweet spot now is kind of this emblematic version that's like a little bit older, but still really reminiscent of what the original art style was like. And then still kind of this unique look. And I think that's like really satisfying because it feels nostalgic, but it also feels unique and new. But it also feels not like every show, that like classic Vox Machina kind of design. So that like cool.
Just that I guess like that American anime look.
Yeah, it's like Western anime adjacent. It's like post Korra, everyone just wanted to go after that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
And I didn't think we did a version of that, and they look crazy. Like they don't look themselves. Like even Gugu is like, 5 feet tall. And we're like, that's not right. And
she has a crazy jawline.
I've never
She's
seen
like
this.
Yeah, she was mewing. She
Hell
like,
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen this, Mackenzie, because it was all in development. We had like 4 or 5 artists kind of take a stab at it too, and eventually like we got to the look that we did, but it was kind of stressful. Like we were like, is this gonna work? Like, and even now I think the animation style for Gentry was one of the hardest to pull off, like because it was so new and unique and different. Like we really had to spell it out for like the overseas studios and stuff because they would like some funky drawings would come back.
Oh
This is
shit. Yeah.
not the show.
Yeah, I imagine,
That
especially managing all the communication, and they're probably not too familiar with that kind of art style. I'm fingers crossed for an art book or something, so you can get a look at
Yeah.
what the. I want to see. I want to see Mew and Goo Goo.
I need Mew and Goo Goo. I'm gonna be up all night thinking about that, to be honest.
Oh my god.
I I guess I had like the first question I feel like I had whenever I was like discovered the show, because I think I just saw a trailer. I'm like, this looks really cool. Like Netflix is doing original animation. That's cool. All right, we finally we can watch something cool on Spilling the Milk. Uh, and where does the name Gentry come from?
Yeah. It was a combination of Jennifer and Gentry. And I have
Gentry. Okay.
this habit of naming, probably because my namesake is so unique too, but I have this habit of naming main characters like an original, like a different weird name. Like that's kind of something that I subconsciously do.
Yeah.
And Gentry Chow ended up being the like main character's name for a really long time. And when I pitched it originally, it was the show was just going to be called Gentry, and a lot
Mm.
of feedback from Netflix being like, no one's gonna watch the show because they don't know what the
I've been searching up Gentry. It's a new word you came up with. Oh
yeah.
my god.
So I was like very like I was like, what do you mean no one's gonna know what that means? It's clearly a name. But then you ask people and they're like, yeah, maybe you should change the title. And so we had like, I think that might have been like the hardest thing um to get approved at Netflix was like the official title of the show because they had like generated so many titles that they thought were click friendly, like on their platform.
Uh,
So
yeah.
The list was crazy. I
the
saw
list
it on the server at one point. It was
Was there
wild.
any ones that like stick out that you could tell us or?
there was one that was like Gentry's Outer Demons. And I'm like, that
Oh
is
yeah.
so, like that's wild, right? That's like
Outer Demons. That's
Outer Demons because I like then it's kind of alluding to the fact that she has inner demons.
yeah.
But it's like that's such a like serious drama piece, and that wasn't quite it either. I swear at one point an exec was like, what about Demon Slayer? And I was like, you are not
They're
like,
so
no
out of time.
way.
Very not keeping
That
their
is-
finger on the pulse
I
with that
found
one.
the list.
Oh, there you go.
What about Naruto? Have you heard of that one? Holy shit.
Uh,
Yeah.
we have Gentry Chow, Confessions of a Teenage Demon Hunter.
Oh damn, that's
Uh,
a long
Burn It Down, Gentry Chow.
It sounds
I
very
was a
Pokemon.
teenage demon hunter.
one. Okay.
Gentry Chow versus Being Normal. And one more is
Being
Gentry
Normal.
Chow, Demon Avoider.
Demon
You
avoider.
avoider.
Gentry Chow, socially distant from demons.
Socially anxious. That is
Yeah.
that's really interesting. Yeah. Cuz I remember when I was first like telling the boys that we should watch the show, like me and Cora got into a legitimate argument because I think Cora thought her name was Jenny Chow. And I'm like, "No, it's Gentry
Because
Chow."
I was just scrolling through Netflix and I saw like the title and it was in the back of my head. I was like, my brain just like replaced it with something that it knew to be a pre-existing
exist.
name.
Yeah. And I was like, "No, it's Gentry. It's the new hit name. It's going to be the #1 baby name of 2025."
Let's make it happen.
Come on.
Get those numbers up.
Any pregnant people in chat,
Yeah. You know what to do.
you know what to do,
If you're
guys.
still considering what name to pick.
There's always a new name. Hell yeah. But yeah, I guess one of my favorite parts of the show, I guess I've kind of like talked about it. Like when we were watching the show, the melodrama of like Gentry, Kit, and Michael is just like so entertaining to watch. Like you're an adult and you're looking at these like teenagers like try and riz each other up in like the most awkward ways, and it's very fun to watch. Um, was there any particular like inspirations behind that sort of aspect of the show? Was there any like things you grew up watching that you're like, I want to channel this energy, I guess?
I feel like I knew that I wanted it to be a love triangle, and I always had a lot of fun watching Will They Won't They. Like I think Diaries is a great example. So is
Mhm.
Twilight. Like I think that kind of teenage uh YA aspect of it was something that I felt really good about including in the show, and it felt very like it made sense that they were going to be supernatural, and like that you have this um love triangle of boys that like aren't what they seem. And it's interesting because I think when I first was thinking about like who would be these two um worthy you know sides of a triangle, the first one was always this all American kind of a like easy lifer, uh all like high school sweetheart kind of a vibe, like this very
Yeah.
classic football player that's kind of an all-star, and everyone thinks he's hot, and that felt like I think maybe subconsciously I was like, oh, I wish that happened to me, like that being chased by like the most popular guy in school.
Yeah.
You have that element, and I think you're like, well, who's gonna be able to be up against that? Like who's gonna
Yeah.
be a good champion to fight that? And
Yeah.
then you're like, well, obviously it's gonna be like this bad boy, right? It's gonna be
Yeah.
edge lord, emo kid that's kind of hot because they're intelligent. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna be kind of this other side. But I think then I found this short story that was in this like very old Chinese like novel. It's called Scary Stories and Other Strange Adventures, and it's like this by this novelist in the Song Dynasty, and he had this one short story that was about this like hot traveler lady. Like they're always kind of a hot person that like seduces old men on a mountain or something. Like they're always
Oh.
doing something shady where they're like, please, I don't have a home and I don't have anywhere to go. Will you take me? And so um this traveler like was like, holy crap, she's smoking. Yeah, I'll take you home.
Of course. Come
Direct
on.
quote, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like that was a quote from the
Yeah.
well, like and so then this strange traveler like ends up eating his wife, and like crazy shit goes down in the house, and then he like peeks through this window, and in the room that she's staying in she has taken off all of her skin, and she's like refreshing it and painting
Oh
for the
shit.
demonic thing. And the short story is called Painted Skin, and there's been a lot of adapted like C dramas and movies about this short story. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I want to do a version of this. And I was like, the version of this that I think a teenage girl, or what I would have liked in this version, is like a K-pop, like all the K-pop
Yeah.
combined into one guy. Like that's kind of guy that would be able to combat against like the all-American bad boy, right? And I think that kind of plays to like the two sides of being a Chinese American, or being like an immigrant in a place that's like so famously American, like so classically an American small town. So
Mhm.
then that was kind of what inspired those two boys. Like you had Kit and you had Michael, and then watching kind of the crew, and like watching everyone bring those characters to life was like really fun. Like Mackenzie can attest, there was some
People took sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, the behind the scenes, everyone's kind of yelling
The
at each
crew,
other.
the animation crew overseas was taking sides, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Like,
We had like there's one episode where in episode 6 where Kit is like disheveled and like
Yeah, he's down bad.
like that was there was never a design for that. Like that was like we were just use the regular model, and they were like, no, this needs more, and they're don't worry, we know what to do.
We need to do him right. Oh my
We're in
God.
touch with the character.
Is there like a majority side? Like, is it like it was Team Kid or Team Michael winning? Do you guys have like a ratio?
Um, it was kind of an embarrassing ratio. Like, embarrassing for Michael.
That's
Well, everybody
was,
wants the
I-
magic demon boy. Who doesn't want the magic demon boy? Of course.
yeah.
not me. I've been Team Michael since day one, baby.
Day
Like,
one,
Yes.
I do fuck with Michael. I think he's got a good heart. He's just, I just wish he would hit leg day. Like he's all of his muscles are in his back, and I feel bad for his
real.
frame. You know what I mean? It's a little tough, but yeah, I know. I definitely the Kit sort of
If Kit took some
character.
time, worked on his attachment issues, I think he'd be a lot better.
If he went to therapy,
Did some self-reflection.
that would be sick.
I think if all the fans like took some time to their attachment style and go to therapy, they would like Michael too. Like I think the problem isn't Kit or Michael, I think, you know?
Yeah,
It's so you're saying who you like says a lot about you.
Yes.
The danger. Yeah.
Yes, because like Mackenzie and I text about this all the time. Like Kit is literally bioengineered to be like Gentry's everything. Like it is all by design, like
If
by
you-
God's hand.
Yeah. If you have a crush on Kit, you are a victim, is what I'm saying.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean? Like, it
We're
worked.
cooked, guys. We're cooked.
It worked. Like
Oh
that's
my
what I'm
God.
saying.
Ah, I see. That's really funny. Yeah, no, I really they were like probably my favorite part of the show. I guess I was pretty stunned at like how like deep Kit's arc gets and like how his sort of story unfolds and the I guess commitment in this show. Like I was like pretty floored by I guess spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched the show and Kit eventually you know, meets his demise and like he just doesn't come back. I'm like,
Yeah,
Where
the
the
whole time
fuck's
I'm
my-
like, is he coming back?
I'm just so used to it. I'm like, even in like anime, that like
Yeah.
they'll bring back a character, but it's
Yeah.
like the commitment to kill a character and keep them dead is just. I don't know. I thought that
It's
was very
like
brave.
I think especially like we've grown rather jaded having seen probably almost every single modestly popular animated movie. Like the number of movies that end with a fake out death scene is
Yeah.
is pretty
Yeah.
it's astronomical.
Yeah.
So like the commitment, and I mean even like with Gugu as well and her journey, and like the fun shock of like having her die in the first episode, but she sticks around as a ghost. Even that's like a major shift in the character that happens super early on and changes like the direction that you're expecting things to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my hope is that like I was like, let that be a warning what the show's about to be. And I don't think people got the memo. Like people were still really devastated. I mean I comments all the time, and people are always like, oh, after Kit died, I just didn't want to finish the show.
Oh,
Like,
shit.
well, I'm sorry.
That's a you problem.
That's a you problem.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the effect the character had on them, I guess. Shit, because I just feel like we're so programmed, like as a culture, watch so much media that like an important character gets killed off it's a fake out. But yeah, I know I think I'm just we're just kind of burnt out on that. And I just think it's such a unique experience to have that. I guess I want sorry, did you have something to say, Corey?
Oh, I was going to say, speaking of unique experiences, I wanted to talk about the Texas element because it's such a
Yeah.
big, it's a part of the show that's so, I mean, it's part of why I really enjoy it. I love anything that has like a really well defined sense of place. I just think
Hmm.
is really just more naturally, you have so much more to give it a sense of life, like it exists in the real world because you're more being more specific. All great art is defined through specificity. So I'm just correct me if I'm wrong, but you grew up in Texas, right? So it
Yeah.
was it just like a natural pick for you when you were placing the show? You're like, this is where I want it to be.
Yeah, I did because I felt like, Friday Night Lights is like kind of a really classical high school um movie, like high school based movie, and like football
Hmm.
is so big there. Like it felt like it made sense to place it again in this like all American suburbs. And I was like, well, I grew up in one, so why does might as well place it there. And I think the fun part about growing in up in Texas is that like Texas has so much state pride. Like they're so unique with how school is run and the traditions of homecoming, and like even like the kind of the history and the state fair, like how much cultural impact
They will put
all have.
anything into the shape of Texas.
Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
you can, in case you forget where you are, they will put like Texas shaped tiles on the overpasses, and you'll drive over like Texas logos all the time. Like it's very clear that there's a lot of pride for the state. And I thought that was just really fun to kind of work with because there's just so many good good little Easter eggs that we can put in. And you see people who are from Texas call them out on the show all the time. Like people really love that Kevin Wynn is in the show. Like people really love that mums are a big thing. There were so many other things that we wanted to try to fit in that was like so Texas lore, but we just like didn't have the time or didn't have the resources to have all of that screen time dedicated
Mm.
to the show. So I think that was so fun. I think like I was watching like Riverdale when I was developing this show, and I like
Yeah. I could
loved
feel that. I could feel that in there. I could feel it.
loved Riverdale. I loved how everything was just like randomly smoky if it was like a drama scene,
Oh,
and
so good. Oh
so
my God.
good. And then, like things like Euphoria started coming out too, where they had like these big flashy rim lights on characters that were like bright blue and bright red and stuff. And
Like a very
um
surreal kind of style.
super surreal, super like I think now people dub it as like the A24 look, but I think
Yeah.
it's very CW. Like it's very um like drama telenova to me. Like I think I was really thinking about setting like having a place that felt like it was natural to have all of those like bright lights and like horror pieces be set up. And so Texas just so happened to be fit, and I was like I know about Texas. Like
Yeah.
so I think that's, yeah, I agree. I think that's really awesome. And I think again, like the show is because it's so grounded in kind of everyday life. Like the goal of the show isn't to feel like you're watching a cartoon necessarily. The goal of the show is to feel like you're watching something that's living with us and just so happens to be animated. But like the world of Gentry and um, the place that she lives in is very much our world.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. I think that came through a lot. I just like as Core lives in Texas. I visited Texas. It was really interesting to see that kind of exemplified, especially like the Alamo episode,
Yeah, I
because
was like,
because
I went
yeah,
there. I saw
yeah. I
it.
I was
where
like me
where do you
and
live in Texas?
yeah.
I live in Austin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then you know.
No,
Oh yeah.
I was very. That's probably the biggest culture shock is just seeing the state pride for sure. Even in like the small ways, like when I first went to the Walmart, I looked up and did not notice that there was an entire row of Texas flags going down this entire
Whoa.
massive Walmart. Just
Damn
details
fucking
like
right.
that all throughout.
I
Uh,
recently learned that Texas is the only state that has like a state was it a state pledge also?
Didn't this come up while we were
Yeah,
talking or something?
there's
Yeah.
two,
We
right?
thought that every state had a state pledge, and I was like, no, girl.
What do you mean? Like you do the national pledge. You're like, I pledge allegiance to thee, right? And then you do the Texas pledge after. And the Texas pledge is like, it's kind of crazy. It's
Yeehaw, let's go to Buc-ee's. Like,
Honestly, I'm just surprised you don't do the Texas Pledge first.
I know. And there's so many cool, like, I'm not saying that Texas is an amazing place to live right now. But I do think there's like so many cool things that make it so unique, and like it just made it more fun to highlight that, because I think like a lot of shows are either in like San Francisco or New York or Seattle, like they're big cities, and the pros and cons of that is that you can kind of generalize what a big city looks like. Maybe you have like the Chicago Bean in there, maybe you'll have Cat's Deli, like you can kind of make it feel like New York adjacent or whatever. But I really wanted this show to feel like it's in Texas, like you're driving next to Dallas, like like the state fair, you can smell the state fair through the screen. Like I think it came so specific that like the people that ended up working on the backgrounds for the show, like our designers, a lot of them are from Texas too, and art director was also from Texas. And so they like were like, oh, we know what we should do here. Like they were so like the high school and everything, they were like pulling references from their own upbringings in Texas, because I think like this show just happened to attract Texas goers and like Asian Americans and like people who love triangles, like things like that. And so that was like something that was really lucky too, because we ended up getting a lot of people from Texas working on the show. Like even I would say like the sound designers on the show, we worked with this host house that they were like putting in Texas specific cicadas and birds. Like they
whoa.
were
That's
all,
super interesting.
yeah,
Whoa.
it was all like by design, so that it feels like we're paying homage to a place that exists.
Yeah. I really and I appreciate that, since I think for a lot of people, especially because of current time, people have a very specific image of Texas. Like when they hear
Yeah,
Texas, they just think country boys, cowboys or whatnot.
that's true.
But it's like it is a very diverse place. It's massive. There's a lot here, and so I think I imagine that having something that's a more earnest depiction of like the variety of people and culture that's going on there is very appreciated.
I got
Yeah.
to visit. There's like several places in Texas, like the in Carrollton, which is the town specifically it's based on, that are in Gentry, and one of them is Babes, and
Ah.
that is it turned into Mimi's, the chicken place.
Hmm.
But it is an
Okay.
actual restaurant. And while I was there, I went in and they were closed, but they still let me buy a t-shirt. uh
Whoa. That's nice.
because and they were trying to like figure out why I was there, because like why do you want a t-shirt from us if you've never eaten here? And I was like,
You'll
in
understand.
like 8 months you'll understand. Like you'll get it.
So that's
That's so
spot
eerie.
one on the Gentry Chow pilgrimage.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Gentry Chau pilgrimage, um, if you really wanted to go, like it's my hometown called Carrollton, Texas, which is a suburb in Dallas. It's like 30
Okay.
minutes from downtown Dallas. And
Shout out.
shout out. Um, and it is kind of like you got to go to Mimi's, which is this chicken diner place, and you got to go to that like area that there's like an ice cream parlor, there's like a candy shop, there's like all kinds of trinkets that sell in that area, and that's where like Chang falls down on in the middle of episode 10.
Okay.
Gazebo. Yeah.
The gazebo, yeah. You got to go to the Texas State Fair. Um, which we like. The reason why Gentry's birthday is in October is because I wanted a Texas State Fair episode, and State Fair only opens in the month of October. So we were like,
We
it has
need this, yeah.
yeah, it has to line up with the homecoming. It has to be the exact amount of time. Like it has to be the right time,
Making all the dates work.
making all the dates work. And then you have to go to the Alamo, which was like a 5 hour drive. And there was a deleted, like, there was an episode that we wrote and then eventually didn't, it got cut, but it was Gentry and Michael and Stella all visiting UT Austin for a like college tour. And that was,
I would have loved to see that.
I know that would have been
That
fun.
sounds cool.
And then like we thought about trying to get them into Schlitterbahn because Schlitterbahn is unhinged and like a wild thing that Texas has.
Hmm.
And if you don't know Texas, it's like this giant water park, I guess. It's like a utopia for bacteria and like blood.
Disease.
It is it's
That-
so
A
wild.
petri dish.
It's
That's-
a petri dish.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. Our actually our friend Eden, who he lived in Dallas for a bit. He's been all over. But he was mentioning it's like if it's truly Texas, they gotta have Schlitterbahn, and we're like, what are you talking about? That doesn't even sound like a real place. But then there is like a nod to it towards the end. He
Yeah,
was like
it's
he
real.
pointed it out. I was like, oh my gosh.
We
Yeah.
a lot that like a lot of the Texas natives that worked on the show, like this is truly kind of exposure therapy for them and for me as well, because it's a lot of like taking on your childhood head on, but in like kind of an animated form, which is still traumatic, you know. And so it's really interesting watching everyone's interpretation of what Texas is, and even more interesting that everyone's interpretation of Texas is all like uniform. Like it's all one interpretation, which is kind of funny.
That's super cool.
Yeah, I know for sure. I particularly, yeah, that Texas Fair episode I thought was really fun. How all the kind of plots converged, and Gentry's outfit in that episode, like, man, that was so
Oh my gosh,
just
all the outfits.
Hey.
the outfits, man. Like she changed outfits like every episode. I'm like, damn, I'm so used to watching like so many cartoons where like the outfits are pretty uniform. Like, you know, a character wears the same outfit in every episode, and her like fashion sense being like an integral part of her character, I thought was really refreshing. Um, yeah, no,
That I it's I again I think um it's really because it was something that I like really knew I wanted to put in the show. Like that was there have been elements that has always been existent in the original pitch deck, like even before the art style change and everything, and that was one of them. Like I had a page specifically dedicated to Gentry's fashion, and I was like, I remember writing in the deck, I was like, Gentry loves drip. And and Allie called me and I was like, Echo, I'm almost 40. I don't know what drip means. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I was like, okay. And then I put the definition, like tongue-in-cheek berry, like maybe there are other execs that don't know what it is. You know, whatever, it's cool, whatever.
yeah.
I put the definition of drip like from Urban Dictionary into the deck and
Oh my
like
God.
explained that it's like another word for fashion. It's another word for like, you know, clothes that you really feel like is your fit. And so that was really funny to see because like that's one of the things that you encounter when you're like pitching. You're like, oh, it's not just me looking at this deck anymore. Like I've been looking at this deck for like a year before I pitched it. It's not just me looking at this deck anymore. Like some people are going to need that. And then the next couple of pages, I had screenshotted things like, you know, JRPG fashion and streetwear from Seoul and Korea and from China. I had like put things like Acme Studios in there and like all kinds of things that I liked. And it was like, I think a clumsier version of this because when you're a teenager, you're not gonna afford all of these like amazing clothes, but you're gonna try to do the fast fashion version of it and you're gonna try to experiment with it. And part of that is just discovering yourself. Like I think because Gentry's whole arc is about finding your powers and not having a voice, and like who you get to choose to grow up to be and stuff. Like fashion was kind of an alternate silent way of expressing yourself, and a silent way of like saying like she's growing and she's all that. Like I think when you get to the later episodes and her hair completely changes, like that's the trauma hair, that's the breakup hair that
Yeah.
everyone experiences. Like suddenly they feel like they just carry themselves in a different way, and I think that really is effective in a visual sense. So it really ties into things like animation, and it's so ironic to me that like a lot of animation doesn't utilize that. Like we don't, I think you have like a lot of middle-aged white dudes making like, you know, fifth grade girl characters that are like wearing overalls and like red Converse, and like that's the extent of their knowledge they dress as. And like that's like this hopefully is kind of like that era is over. Like we don't need that
Yeah.
animation anymore. And we were lucky to like the person who designed all of the outfits for Gentry, he had worked in fashion in New York for a while, and then he made the jump into animation. And he actually is the background designer. All the crazy backgrounds that you see are also his too. But
That's awesome.
he's just like
Damn.
this, you know, Renaissance man of like many talents. And so he spent like a week or so designing all these Gentry fits, and we like loved every single one of them, and they were so cute to put. But like we only ended up ultimately putting in like 15 or so, because
Oh,
you
there's more. Oh my God.
yeah, there were so many amazing ones. Like we had
Wow.
stuff for her coming dress. Like there was scene cuts in the pilot that she like, you know, we never got to utilize, but she had like a really cool soul outfit. Like there were so many things that got designed for her. But I think that was like specific since the very beginning, because I had like put it in the deck. And so I think when you're thinking about world building in that way, it truly does matter, like the small details, because I think it really helps flesh out a world. And it helps like get people on the same page as you, because I think I would have like the way I think about Gentry's outfits was not the way that Alex thought about Gentry's outfits, and which was not the way that Ali thought about Gentry's outfits. And so that's really cool to see. Like I added so many links about like how like Tetsuya Nomura changed JRP fashion and Final Fantasy. Like all these like video essays and stuff got included in
Oh,
the
hell yeah. That's so
yeah,
interesting.
it is. It was a very thorough deck. Like I I
Damn.
I feel like when people talk about Ang Lee and how he directs a movie and like gives everyone all this resource material, like that's how it felt. I was like, read all of this, you'll know.
You'll be up all weekend, but you know,
Yeah,
you gotta do this to get in. I
yeah.
I guess like a question for Mackenzie. I guess like how did you like meet Echo, get involved in the project and stuff? Because I like for me like me and Cordy should be like big fans of all the memes you did on YouTube with Steven Universe. Like we're both like pretty big Steven Universe fans. So like when you
Culture.
commented, we were like, dude, no way. We got MK
It was a
Atwood in
double
this shit.
fanboy moment,
It was
actually.
like,
Oh
whoa.
my
I'm like,
God.
that was sick.
Yeah, so after I sort of I graduated from college and started working in animation, working at Titmouse, which is the studio that animated Gentry. Um, and I saw the listing go up. They were like recruiting, sent out an email to everyone inside the company, and they were like, "We're trying to do this like urban fantasy thing. We want all the fights to be edited like music videos." And I was like, "Put me in, coach!" Like, because you know, AMV is I love editing. I
Yeah.
love editing that style. So I was just like, "Oh my God, I need to get in on this so bad." Uh, and luckily I did. So yeah, and then we met
Yeah.
on the show.
That's so cool. Cause yeah, no, exactly. Like making AMVs translating to like actually editing like
That's
these
a
fight scenes.
that's a
That's
really
such an
good
interesting
point,
pipeline.
because that's what I kind of thought when I was watching it. Like it almost feels like it's like a music edit, which I guess that would bring me to one of my other comments, which is just like the use of music in the show, like the intro songs, and also how many there are.
Dude,
Like
yeah.
I already like picked up on it to some degree, but then I was looking at like the official soundtrack playlist that was put together, and I was like, my jaw dropped, just like the quantity that you were able to fit in there. I just think that's a really unique choice, especially considering I think most shows it's maybe one song in a
Yeah.
very special episode of a season, but
Yeah.
besides that, it's
Yeah.
pretty rare.
I can talk about the music side, but I want Mackenzie to go first because she like all the music that you see edited is all her. Like that's her bread and butter.
The music, most of the editing that I did for music was when we had needle drop songs, which are just songs that are already exist outside of the show. So like for example in 112, White Flag plays in the whole montage with Mooney. And yeah, like those also I wanted to be really specific with the way that they're edited. You sort of have less flexibility if it's not an original song that we're making in-house. Like if our composer Brian isn't doing it,
Mhm.
he he can sort of work with whatever timing we end up with if it's like a original song. But if it's like an existing song, like, by SZA or whatever, then
Mhm.
we have to adhere to the timing. You can't uh just like add or subtract time, so it has to be very specific.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I guess there's like a huge distinction there. I'm just yeah, I guess I was pretty stunned by yeah, the amount of original music and also just like yeah, you have SZA, I believe Billie Eilish and
Yeah.
like all these like huge like artists. Um it's just like really cool to see in a show like this. Um yeah, I
That
guess I don't know where I was going with that.
that was like kind of the the part of the budgeting. So this is like I don't know if this is so nerdy to talk about, but like
We're hella nerdy, so like you can kind of
Let's get
go
it.
We
into whatever.
love
Let's
the
go.
nerd stuff.
this is like math nerd stuff though.
Oh shit, okay. But you know,
The
it's
network.
no, yeah, go into it. Yeah, I'm interested to hear about like budgeting of a show because yeah, no,
I
yeah,
know you guys are making it. I saw you guys are making a pilot too, and
yeah, we're making a pilot, so it's like we're kind of it. We're always like factoring in our budget, so it's interesting seeing like a big like Netflix production,
a Netflix.
sort of thing.
Like I
Yeah.
think so when everything gets done, like you pitch the show, right? Let me back up a little bit. You pitch the show, and then the show gets bought, and then after the lawyers do their whole magic deal, then you kind of start what's called development, which is like, okay, there's no guarantee that the show is going to get made, but we're willing to kind of fund you while you explore what a pilot looks like, what an art style looks like, what all this looks like. And so that is when they hire a line producer, a pre-production line producer on the show. And what a pre-production line producer does is that she or he takes a look at all of the materials, like the scripts. Probably you have other episodes written already with a writer's room, or you've at least broken out a season. And so they will look at the script and all the elements and be like, okay, they go back to the network and go, it will cost approximately this much money. And
Mhm.
they, it's not finalized or anything until that's greenlit, but it's good for the networks to know how much the show is going to cost because, like networks only care about bottom dollar at the
Yeah, they only
At
want
the
the
end of
money.
the
like
day.
there's
Business.
Yeah.
going to be so many elements there that like will prompt a green light for the show, and one of them will be how much it costs. So this show in particular, I was like in the beginning writing the songs into the script. So it says like Gentry sings along to Pretty Savage by Blackpink. Like the song is so specific. And then like so in the Mimi's birthday chicken dinner birthday scene, she was like the waitresses clap along to Happy Birthday, like whatever.
Mhm.
Which by the way is like fucking expensive to put the show.
Oh shit.
We had to cut the happy birthday song out. Like,
Happy
we're not
birthday.
paying that much.
Oh
Like,
my god, how
That's
expensive that is.
crazy.
it was twice the amount of a SZA song. And I was like, excuse me.
What?
We're gonna have to settle for SZA and Cat's Eye.
I
Yeah,
Like,
and
guess.
I guess we'll have to settle. for
yeah, we
SZA.
cannot get
That
happy
is-
birthday.
And so two reasons why I did this, because one, you can shoot for the stars and you can hope that the networks go, cool, like whatever, we'll give you as much money for the music as possible. And the second is like, you can hassle people. They'll be like, that's way too much money. Like animation, you're right, almost never gets a music budget. So it's very unique for this show to get a music budget, but it was like embedded into the show. It was like, so again, the story, it serviced the story in a certain way, and it was very much about embedding us into Gentry's POV, and that required music that she listened to. And so it was all this stuff that they were like, okay, well, this project clearly needs music, and we had to budget that in. And so they kind of just come up with this like budget, and a big lump of it went to music in this case, because we knew that was happening. And like I had the producers come to me and be like, this is a good budget, this is a robust budget. We have never seen this much budget before in an anime.
Damn.
We were like hyping it up. They were like, and I was like, oh sweet, we can get like whatever we want. And then we get into production, and they were like, Echo, if you want Pretty Savage to be in the pilot, that's going to be like 60% of your budget. And I was like, what happened to the robust budget? Like, this backstabbing. It was like,
Oh my
seriously, like,
Blackpink stabbing you in the back. There's too many members. They got to split up all the money. Like, it's a lot of money to go around.
the
That's
real reason why they split up, like for real.
it's true.
The thing that, like, and it was back and forth. They were like, okay, we're gonna need to ask for more money. It was a whole thing. And you just kind of have to make it work. Like, we had an amazing music supervisor that had relationships with a lot of the licensing studios, and she was able to work magic, and we really got a lot more, like, bang for our buck was for real on this show. Like, we got a lot more worth than we would have. And so it's like kind of crazy to me that, like, and like the idea of live action shows and live action movies, like getting every single song is like needle dropped, or every single section of their scenes are needle dropped. Like, that's crazy, because I felt like we barely got by.
Mhm.
And, it took us like 4 months before the show like finished, like the production of the show finished, before we started recording artists. And that was kind of crazy. Like, that was an insane thing to do. Like, we didn't sign Cat's Eye's contract until then, and it was like really nerve-wracking. I was like, to get this through, and like
Down to the wire.
Yeah. And I think if I'd known again, like, music groups and music is always going to be the hardest department to work with, just because it's music. Like, there's so many personalities, and that, like, you want something that fits, but you also don't want to blow all your money. At one point we were like looking at groups that like aespa and New Jeans and stuff, and it was just like way too expensive.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and so we really, like, Cat's Eye was also very expensive, but we like really lucked out because we like asked them right before they debuted and stuff. Like, it was also a timing.
Oh, nice. That's great.
So it was like really interesting. But yeah, some of like Mackenzie really took some of the songs that were in the playlist that I had made for the crew and like made it work. I just had like a general idea. I was like, that'll sing to someone someday. And like it came into execution, like, because Mackenzie was like, no, I think this is a song that's gonna work for this montage, and then like really set the tone for the rest of the series too.
Yeah, I can't name a show that is like almost every single time there's an action scene, a new K-pop song appears, and it's
Yeah.
like I'm not a huge K-pop guy, but like I listen to some New Jeans. So I feel like I'm getting like slowly getting converted into becoming a K-pop fan just from I keep listening to the theme song just because I think Cat's Eye like killed it. I
Yeah.
get like some people in the chat are kind of asking just about like how that sort of like the with the Cat's Eye
Yeah.
Yeah.
collaboration, how that sort of came about.
Also, if anyone in chat would like to put a couple questions in, I think we'll grab
Yeah.
a couple questions if there's any good
Yeah, for
ones.
sure.
Cat's Eye came in as a like there's a couple of groups. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but there's a couple of groups that were like in we were in cahoots with uh to do the final theme song, Baby Monster being one of them, and Cat's
Okay.
Eye, like and it was kind of an interesting mix because like Hybe was really excited about the collaboration. They thought it would be really good for Cat's Eye's image, and it made the most sense story wise because they're an international girl group. This is about like international themes and had a lot of like multi-linguistic um, kind of lyrics going on and stuff. And I was really excited because like Hybe at that time like never missed. Like they were so good at creating girl groups and stuff. And so we had reached out and it was kind of a interesting gamble because this is before the, their show on Netflix debuted, and this is before their actual musical debut. So the only thing we had to reference as a musical point for like their like skill and their talent and stuff were demos. Like they had demos of the song, so they weren't actually singing in the song. It was like the demos before they had recorded on the actual album.
Oh.
So we heard Touch and Debut and all of those um, in demo version, and then it's kind of like, okay, hear the demo version, hear the first couple of episodes of the show, like here are their raw clips singing, and it's like it's kind of theater of the mind after that. You kind of just have to imagine and hope that it works. Like, and it's kind of like, oh, it will work because they're all super talented and trained by like some of the best in the biz, and so you kind of have to put that leap of faith, and then recording day comes and they just kind of like they bring it. Those girls were so nice and so eager to like get this song right, and I was like talking to them about, we had just recorded a song with Jesse, which was in the pilot, and we had played them the Jesse song first because they were like, their music is so like bubblegum pop and like very sweet and like very aesthetically them. And then we were like, okay, can you just go a little bit harder? And I think
Hmm.
it didn't click for them until they heard Jesse's song and they were like, oh, this is gonna go hard. And I think
Hmm.
it was really funny because I was like, right, like they recorded each part individually, and I'm just like right next to the recording booth and just like staring at them and like, you can do this. Being such a like stalker, being and like trying to hype them up and just being like more because like they were also very nervous about like this is their first original soundtrack, this is like kind of a big deal, like they want to do a good job, and they did, like they knocked it out of the park. But the Netflix had come in and recorded some behind the scenes, and I like wish that I had gotten access to the behind the scenes because you can just see me, like you can see my breath like fogging up their glass because I'm like, please do good.
You've got this. Come on, please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it really
that's
was.
so interesting that it's you got them at the bit like the beginning of of their careers and stuff. It's such a big moment. I thought they killed it. Yeah,
It
like
did.
you
Yeah,
saying that they recorded it individually when I feel like it comes together as such like a cohesive project is like a product like that. That's really interesting.
it is. I mean, they really they have an incredible team. Like I think the people over at Hybe and at Universal Music Group, they and at Geffen, they just like know what they're doing, and so they're able to, like because Cat's Eye is such a product of like just the music pop like academy that they were coming out of. Like they're such a product of that like it wasn't that I was ever nervous about them recording, but it is kind of a fun new way to like push them to experience things because I think we were much more relaxed and wanted them to have a good time, and they were like more in that like military style training that they were like, can we do this? Can we not do this? And so it was fun to kind of collaborate in that way.
Yeah, that's really sick. I guess there's some comments in the chat. I guess like a question I'm also interested in is like how did Ali Wong get involved in the project initially? Because I know like you got her in these initial pitch
Hmm.
meetings, but like how did you meet and end up getting her involved?
Yeah, she and I are wrapped at the same, or at the time we were wrapped at the same agency. We were both wrapped at UTA, and she was just one of the people that how we had reached out to as like a potential producing partner. Because one of the things that I I think I wanted early on was a strong, well-rounded package. I think it's really important, especially if you don't really know the business side of selling a show and making putting a packet together, is that like the stronger that you make the show like more enticing by like adding talent and all this, like the better the show pitch will go. And um I had like knew this from a very beginning standpoint, and so my reps had all put together a list of people that we were going to go out and ask, and Ali was one of them. And so we had just sent her the deck that I put together, and she was like really interested, and we had a phone call where I was like explaining to her, what the show was and what I envisioned for it and how she can help as an executive producer. And it was her first time executive producing something too. Like that was an avenue that she was interested in doing too, is that she felt like she was in a point in her career that she wanted to be in that like advisory kind of a position. And so it just like made sense. And so that's kind of, it was just like a lucky draw, I guess. Like we both had the same rep at the time. So
Oh, that's really cool.
That's so cool.
I guess. Yeah.
Uh,
Hollywood is crazy like that, I guess.
Hollywood
Shit.
is crazy for real. It's so
show business.
yeah.
That's the
Oh, business,
rules.
maybe.
Here's I think this is an interesting question. Every single every single detail seems to be so thought about. Were there any sacrifices or trade-offs outside of the costs of music that you had to make?
Oh my gosh, that's an interesting question. So the question is, are there any sacrifices that had to be made? As in, like,
I
are they?
imagine, for example, like perhaps the scale of the show or episode number or things in that sort of vein.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned the UT Austin episode. Like, is there anything else in that sort of vein that you guys like kind of cut out?
Mackenzie,
Or
help me if you think of anything.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to make those compromises all the
Hmm.
time to get it to the finish line, right?
yeah.
Um, like I think a good example of that was when we were in post and we would sit down and watch through the episodes, and we had to like really pick and choose which ones we wanted to have our in-house animators like, reanimate from scratch or just like plus up the scenes. Uh, and I think that knowing which points to hit to get the maximum impact is definitely, it's always a compromise, but
Hmm.
um you just have to min max your resources, and
Yeah,
that way
yeah.
you can get the best version of the show possible.
Could
Yeah, I know.
you share a little bit more about that side of the process? I mean, I think for a lot of that's another comment that a lot of people get. Like the show looks really impressive, and obviously Titmouse does incredible work. But between like your in-house production side and the outsourcing, like getting everything to that quality standard that you had, and capturing this aesthetic.
Yeah, so Gabe, our guy, was
Shout out
Our
Gabe.
guy,
Shout out
our
Shout out
Gabe.
dope,
shout out
Gabe.
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 Gabe
Love
held
that
it
guy.
down. He was very good at allocating resources and just directing the whole like uh team of animators and comp artists in post to really take everything to the next level, like visually, when it came back. uh so many shots got reworked in-house or just, plussed. And it would be like stuff that so whenever there's a new version of a scene, I would be the one cutting it in a lot of the time. And I would like get the new version and I'd be like, I didn't even realize that looked weird until you show me this new version where it's fixed and I'm like, "Oh my God, how did I not like pick up on that?" Or like and it can be just like on a vibe level, like the framing of a shot or like the way that characters are positioned and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it clicks into place. You're like, "Whoa, I did not realize that was missing." But yeah, so that the post process was really key. And even after we did post, like the animation and comp, we did a color correction pass in-house where we added also like different effects like heat blurs and like chromatic aberration on the edges of a lot of scenes. And everything was just super finely tuned. It just takes forever.
Yeah, it felt that way. No, I'm watching, especially like the later episodes. Like I'm thinking of I think it's episode 12 when they're in DU and they're like that
It's
giant
11, yeah.
yeah 11 yeah when they're that giant fight scene and there's like so many intricate cuts of animation.
And it's
I'm
like non-stop action sequences with like dense character movement and complicated designs.
yeah,
Like if I was animating that, I'd be sweating.
yeah, like we're working on our pilot, and I'm just like, how much time would this take with our team that we've created? Like this is such an impressive feat of animation.
Yes,
Um,
it was like our version of like a Sakuga shot. It was like
yeah.
so intense. And like Mackenzie is right. I think the reason why that section looks so good is also the reason why other sections might not look as good. Like you kind of have to pick and choose your battles on where you want it to be highlighted. Gabe, who is our animation slash retakes director slash assistant director on the show, he has been someone who has been through the post process before and really helped us like get to that level, I think, because like I remember like being so angry at like the first takes of animation and like telling Mackenzie, I'm like, Mackenzie, this is not the show. This is not.
Trust the process, bro. Trust the
This
process.
isn't my show. We've been at this for years, dude. But it eventually came there. It came to be.
It really came together.
That's sick. I guess like the most like asked question in our chat and something I'm curious about is I assume you guys probably can't discuss stuff, but is like has there been any talks of like a potential like season 2 or more episodes? Or was this like intended to be like a standalone story? Because I feel like it ends on a pretty conclusive note. I was just kind of wondering the idea behind that.
There has been no official talks yet, but I think it's really like, I think right with the trajectory of the fandom and like the growing fan base of Gentry, like that's the big focus right now because Mother Netflix is watching, right? Like
Mother Netflix, yeah.
She sees all.
She sees all. Like she'll know when it's time to greenlight a season 2 based on just the reactions of it. And I think that the important thing to focus on is like you guys are doing amazing work reviewing the show and like having us on, and I'm like so grateful for this conversation and so grateful to like have you guys' time. And yeah, like I think that's the other, like making a splash, seeing all the fan art, seeing all the growing support for it is like what will garner a season 2, so it's like don't stop doing that.
Yeah,
tell a friend, tell a grandmother. Get the word out.
Yeah, support animation, guys. Yeah, stop scrolling on TikTok, which will be banned in a few days, but
there's so many TikTok references in the show too.
Yeah,
that's completely unrelated. But I'm just like,
well, I don't think the scroll's going anywhere. It's here to stay.
We'll see.
We'll see. Oh, maybe
Ed will be devastated.
It'll
Yeah.
have to be like 小红书. Like it's gonna be like 小红书. I've got 500,000 followers. That yeah, like that. I appreciate that question. Like we see so much stuff all the time of people being like, oh, why don't we're not gonna watch it because Netflix is gonna cancel it, and we're protesting because animation is like in the toilet, and we're never gonna watch animation again, so we're just not gonna watch the show. And like that's like the exact opposite thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally the exact opposite thing you should do.
Yeah, like
It,
that's how you let them win.
yeah, because it's they accept it that that's not going to continue, but it's
Mhm.
like you have giving new things a try. I feel like it just
Yeah.
like so many people struggle to do that because it's just easy to settle into your comfort content nowadays, like more than ever. Like I feel
Yeah,
like everyone does that, but I think, once in a while when you see something like pretty exceptional, I think like Gentry, it really makes you like appreciate keep trying to find things that are exceptional.
Yes.
So yeah, if you got
A-
also yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say, and something that the show reminds me of is, I mean, obviously we're both very big fans of anime. That's like what I watched a lot of before getting as into cartoons and like more Western animation. I was really fixated on just anime for a while, and something I like is that there is like the presence of like a 12 to 26 episode show that is like
hmm
a strong developed concept, and they come in and they have the story to tell, and there's just so many more opportunities for these very specific narratives that might be have possibility to expand the world, but then are also just there to tell a very specific journey with the characters versus something that feels like it's developed just to run as long as it humanly can.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna see those trends like constantly bounce back and forth. You're gonna have right now we're kind of in that resurgence of those shows that you're talking about having multiple seasons at a time. I think people want that again. Like it feels like that is a direction where the networks are going again with TV, especially with a lot of the things I see in development. And when Gentry was developed and made, like that was a time where it was like one and done seasons, right? Like mini series were really popular, and Gentry is kind of a hybrid of that trend of like you want people to pay attention, but you also don't know, you just don't know what the climate of everything looks like.
Mhm.
So it is really interesting to kind of see what like how that gets influenced, especially in original shows and shows like Gentry, because I think having a multi-season guarantee like it did in the good old days, like that totally makes storytelling different. And that would have been a completely different arc that we would have written for the show. I think it's really interesting, like kind of as just an art movement piece, like kind of a era of the times kind of a feeling that like Gentry is the story that it is and the way it is.
How the
Yeah.
process defines the product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Is there any other questions you saw?
Oh, there was one person who was very passionate about the opening theme, the visuals of the opening theme, because it
Oh,
does
they're so
have
sick.
a really
Yeah.
unique style to
Mackenzie.
it.
Mackenzie can talk all about that. She was the one who did it.
Not just me. I mean,
You did it
uh,
alone. You drew the
Did
whole
it.
thing.
You're the
my director Jackie, who each of the editors, animatic editors, was paired up with the episodic director. Um, but yeah, Jackie directed it, and we had Yvonne storyboarding a bunch of stuff on it. And then I got to edit it, and so like it was the three of us like locked in my office for like weeks, just like being like, what would be the coolest possible thing, Uh,
Yeah.
because it was all very vibe based. The the there were a few things that you really wanted us to hit. Like I remember the specifically like you mentioned the Ed phone transition.
yeah.
Mhm.
Uh
The
uh
TikTok transition.
but other than that, you
I
sort of let us just go
I
go
gave
crazy with it.
I literally gave them a presentation of a Google slide of GIFs.
Literally. And my first version of the opening that I edited together was like just emojis of like representing the different characters and like what I thought each part would be, and it ended up being pretty close. Like, I was like, this part would be Michael and then Kit and and then we'll have like Gugu,
Google
Uh
appears. Yeah, no,
y-
I think it really comes out really well, and I just like how this show has like a very distinct like opening theme because I think a lot of like modern
How it has an
cartoons.
opening theme.
Yeah, it's
yes.
Period. Like that was very early on Netflix that told me like we don't believe in openings anymore. Like they had this whole corporate presentation to me about the skip intro button and how that's like revolutionized TV. And like it's basically they're like bottom line, read between the lines, Echo. If you spend money on a opening sequence, then you're kind of wasting money because people will skip it anyways. And I think that's not true because everyone who
yeah.
watched the opening sequence like don't really skip it. And I think that's kind of it's another like tactic of big streamer being like, let's just save money by like not like sometimes it'll work. I think sometimes 9 seasons in you don't you know what the Game of Thrones shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you're gonna skip it, but I think one of the things I really admire, especially about anime, is that they put so much effort, and it's a big deal for a musician to come on and do an opening song, and it's different every season. It's different every 13 episodes, like
Mhm.
that. That's
Hmm.
like a really, it's kind of sells the show. Like I feel like if you don't have like the shitty logline, version on Netflix, you have this cool AMV of the opening sequence and you kind of get what the show is about. And
Yeah,
that's
It's
you
like the
have
pitch.
a
Yeah.
90-second
yeah,
representation of the show's identity, which is going to be a lot more convincing than just
totally,
like words because it can show
Hmm.
visually what you're trying to communicate.
totally. And I think that's one of the things that like I'm so proud of that. Like everyone was able to get because I do think that I joke because I'm telling Mackenzie like this is like 10 slides of like Google like gifts that I found, and here's like some Naruto ones, here's some Sailor Moon ones, like go crazy.
The TikTok of like the transition. Do you know the
Yeah,
one I'm talking about with Levi at Attack on Titan? He like
Oh,
slides into a yeah
oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking
it
about.
like those like match cuts of
match
where, like
cuts. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have friggin' Levi, and then it turns into friggin' Demon Slayer, and then it
Yeah,
goes
Tanjiro.
One Punch Man,
Hmm.
have all those match cuts. I was like, do that.
Yeah, and it worked. No, that the fluidity of that opening, how it, I think it just exemplifies all their characteristics, and then just like all the vibes of all the characters. I thought it was perfect, and that phone transition
For
specifically,
fun.
yeah, I was always floored by it. Um, but yeah,
I'll
um,
pull this one. I think is well. This one's I imagine is also similarly reliant on mommy Netflix.
please,
With
mommy,
other
please.
Netflix properties like Stranger Things having comic runs, have you thought about having spin-off media? Which I pose just because especially the mythology of this world, which we haven't really talked about, but is something I really love. Is definitely there's so much room there.
We I have it. I'm in the middle of publishing a Gentry graphic novel,
Okay,
and
Hell yeah.
that is kind of gonna take its direction different from the show because the first volume of that graphic novel, is just it's the most original version of the pilot I've written. Like it's different and familiar, but it is kind of the version of the pilot that never went to air. And so
Mm.
it's got like elements that are like kind of newer and it will take Gentry into a different direction. But we definitely like there's a graphic novel series on the way for sure. It's written by me and drawn by Cal Athanasov, that was the character designer on the show, and it's going to be amazing. And other things, I think, kind of, you're right. It depends on Mother. Like Mother has to.
Mother has to give us her milk, and she doesn't want to do it, but it's
With
down to
enough
everyone
insistence.
with enough.
Yeah, like Mother owns the rights, really.
Yeah,
So it kind of depends on what Mother wants to do.
yeah, I totally get that. Oh, I guess like something that wasn't like actually confirmed in the show, but I don't know if like people are asking about like Michael's powers.
Mhm.
It's kind of like implied that it is like a generational thing in his family. Like whenever he reveals that he's having these visions to his family, they're instantly like understand and they
Mhm.
kind of like let him do it. But it wasn't really like, I guess, super fleshed out in the show. Is that something that was like pretty like well thought out beforehand, or?
It was because so we had a couple of cultural consultants on the show. Like I'm not a mythology expert by any means. And so one of the cultural consultants was a Chinese, Korean, Japanese mythology expert. She had like she was like multi PhD, you know, like
Shit.
so
Ooh.
many, and she was awesome. The other cultural consultant we had was a Nigerian cultural consultant and about Nigerian lore and specifically Yoruba lore. And one of the things that we were kind of toying around was like the origin of Michael's powers and where that came from. And that was really fun. But circling back on like the things that we had to sacrifice, I do think Michael's storyline was really sacrificed
Hmm.
at the end. And but also kind of gives rooms for us to explore, come back to it and later down the line, season two in comics or whatever, like that is something to explore for Michael. But yeah, it was trying to allude that like there are multiple mythologies exist and we're just seeing Gentry's right now. But there is kind of a more nefarious thing about what's haunting Michael's dreams and like again touching on the intergenerational trauma theme is that like is there intergenerational trauma represented in Michael's family and that one was more closely tied to the like conversions of Yoruba people in Africa when the Christians came and like radicalized everything and how it was like no longer acceptable to like uh believe in like multi-god pantheons like you like Jesus Christ had to come to your heart and like whatever and so
Yeah,
that was
Always coming in to ruin the fun.
yeah. Come on, bro. Back off. Jesus.
and so
Uh,
that was kind of the commentary there but yeah we just would love to explore. We ran out of time.
yeah. Well, yeah, even like if you guys didn't have enough time, like I thought, it was interesting that like even tackled it at all. Like,
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
the presence of or I guess that's like a lot of things, you only have so much time, but I feel like even when you don't see the thing, when there was thought put into it about where it would go or what's the story behind it, having a story behind things that you don't even get explained to as the viewer, I definitely feel like it comes across in the richness of the world.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
hmm yeah. I guess. Why is it pay?
Well, I think I guess I would just want to ask like uh so you have you said there's a graphic novel coming up.
Mhm.
I'd love to know like where can we find that? Where do we look? Where do we stay tuned for whatever is next from you all? Whatever creative endeavors, because I'm personally excited to see whatever comes next, whether it's Gentry Chow or something new.
Yeah.
Um, I'd love for the audience to be able to follow as well.
Um, everyone can follow me at Echo Echo Woo on Instagram. You guys can just email me and be like, "What are you doing?" Um, and yeah, I will be posting and announcing things very shortly. There's some other projects I'm like super excited about this year, and yeah, I think again like so happy you guys reached out and so grateful for this time. Thanks
Oh.
for having us on.
Yeah, thanks to you guys too. Oh my God, yeah, it was really fun. Getting to talk to you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
this
you
was
so much for
awesome.
coming on.
Yeah.
Where can the people find you, Mackenzie?
Oh, I'm at MK Atwood on basically everything. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Easy to remember.
That Kendrick Lamar AMV. My God, I was
That
yeah.
you said that I said that to Echo during production. The
Oh
Yeah.
really? Oh my
and you like
God.
sent it to our exec or something, right?
Good.
Because they were
So
talking about the trailer.
Mackenzie, like in true Mackenzie nature, she was like constantly editing like meme format and like shit
True.
posts and AMVs during the production of the show. And so she'd be texting them to me. I'd be in like mix or whatever with Mother and like like with mix like Mother and Allie and everyone, and I'd be like, oh shit, check this out. Like
Yeah.
stuff together, and like people loved it, and like the exec that we worked with at Netflix loved it so much that they ended up hiring Mackenzie on another project.
That's so sick. Oh
Ooh.
my God. An AMV get you a job.
The
That's such
AMV
goals.
expert.
That yeah.
Everything that has happened in my career has been because of memes, like unironically.
That's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Can't we
And
just
here we
that's
are. Here we are today.
Here we are. That's awesome. Well, I guess I'd like to thank you guys for coming on. And yeah, thanks for coming around, chat. This will probably be uploaded onto our second channel sometime in the coming week. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and if you enjoyed listening to the conversation and you still haven't watched Gentry Chow on Netflix, go watch it. Get on that.
Do
Watch it.
It's 13
Watch
13 episodes, a lot of fun. I definitely recommend watching it with a friend because I think
Yeah.
it's a great show for getting reactions and picking your sides.
Yeah, I was rewatching with a friend last night, and they were like freaking out whenever the kid reveal happened. It was like
Episode 4,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God. It was so
I'm
fun
excited
to
to
that.
see you guys' reactions to the rest of the. I'm excited to see your video. So
Yeah, it should be out like sometime this weekend,
let's
but yeah.
go. Awesome.
Hell yeah.
so fun. Yeah, we had so much fun watching you guys the first time.
Well, thank you.
I loved specifically how you guys all like got bought into the show.
Like slowly.
Slowly but surely, the more you guys watched it, it was really fun watching you. Oh my God, this is better than Twilight.
Leaning in. Yeah.
We're in, dude. Yeah,
That was really-
embracing the slay nature of it. But
Yeah, that was really fun. You guys were so like, man, what are we doing here? We're watching this show for like teenage girls, and then you were in it. Like that's amazing.
Gotcha.
And we're like,
Yeah.
we're watching this show for teenage girls. Yes.
Yes.
I loved it. I really did.
Hell yeah. I'm glad you think so. But yeah, I guess thank you guys for watching. And yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned
Yeah.
for more